Biden had an opportunity today to come out and unite the country, but guess what? He decided to blame President Trump and keep us divided. Meantime, insurrection, that is the big lie about January 6th, and that is where our focus is right now, January 6th, 1 year later. That is our top story tonight. The Republicans responding to Democrats' fixation with January 6th. Take a listen.
We wanted to follow the constitutional process to be able to make our arguments, and unfortunately, that was the true disruption of what occurred on January 6th. I mean, Joe Biden's certification still occurred on January 6th, but we were deprived of the opportunity to make our argument to the country about election integrity. And so when they do it, they're making a principled point, and when we do it, they try to smear us and tens of millions of Americans as insurrectionists. And that's why Marjorie and I are here today, because we did not want the Republican voice to go unheard.
All right, let's talk more about this. Joining me now, the man himself, the Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. Happy New Year, sir. And, you know, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took the opportunity today to divide America rather than unite the United States. Another campaign promise broken in your view?
Not only did Joe Biden and Kamala Harris divide America, they drew comparisons that were unpatriotic and shameful. When you try to compare 9/11 or, what happened at Pearl Harbor with January 6th, it is a very different thing. Now, the loss of human life is always something that is tragic, that we regret, that we never want to see with anyone. But to say that, suicides are the same thing as the deaths that befell our service members at Pearl Harbor, or Americans that were working at the Pentagon or in New York, or who were on the flight that crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania on 9/11, were somehow comparable. They're very different. They're not the same thing, and it is very unpatriotic for those comparisons to have been drawn, particularly by Vice President Harris. But Marjorie Taylor Greene and I did not want the only Republicans in Washington, D.C. today to be the Cheneys. So we showed up not to celebrate January 6th, not to obsess over it, but to expose the truth. And you're right. This was not an insurrection. And I've got real questions about whether or not it was a Fed-surrection. Keep in mind, Chris, when we've asked questions under oath to Attorney General Merrick Garland about Ray Epps, an individual who was animating criminal activity on both January 5th and January 6th, he refused to answer questions. When we asked FBI Director Christopher Wray about the FBI assets that have been acknowledged to have been on the grounds of the 6th, he also wouldn't provide answers. And so if people were entrapped or ensnared on that day, that's really important, because we don't want a federal national security apparatus that can be turned against people because of their politics. That's happened before in our country. And if it happened on the 6th, we're going to get to the bottom of it and we're going to expose it.
Yeah, let me talk to you about what you were just talking about, that bombshell report out of Revolver.News alleging that a man by the name of Ray Epps led the first attack on January 6th, but he has yet to be charged or even detained. Here's what Congressman Nels had to say to Spicer and Company last night. Watch.
You've got a guy like Ray Epps who's on video on the 5th already talking about going into the building, entering the building. He even makes a claim there that he said, I could be arrested for this. Ray Epps should be in jail today. He should be charged under 18 U.S.C. 1202, which is inciting a riot, which if you incite a riot and it causes serious bodily injury or death, you're subject to 10 years in prison. Ray Epps is walking around today.
Yeah, Congressman Gaetz, why are grandparents and other people who were just wandering around the Capitol, not vandalizing anything or doing anything, why are they being held in detention while the FBI allows this guy to walk around?
Well, the logical explanation is that Ray Epps may be acting in concert with elements of the federal government. Remember, the New York Times already published that the federal government had assets and informants that were embedded within these groups. And then the question is whether or not those were the very people involved in planning, directing, increasing criminal acuity on that day. And the Revolver.News piece, which everyone should check out, absolutely makes that case. Now, Congressman Nels is a good congressman. He's also got a law enforcement background. But it's not just the FBI, the DOJ. I mean, think about it this way, Chris. The January 6th committee in Congress cares more about the text messages of your colleague at Newsmax, Sebastian Gorka, than they do about questioning Ray Epps or reviewing his information. And it really gives up the game that the point here is politics. The point is to turn the national security apparatus against the entire patriotic, God-fearing, America-loving MAGA movement. And that's what we have to stop. That's what this whole day has been about for the Democrats, using this as a cudgel. And instead, we should stand up and say, no, this wasn't a crime by insurrectionists. Yeah. It may very well have been a cover-up by our own government.
Yeah, Liz Cheney and the rest on that commission have an allergic reaction to the sentiment of America First. And speaking of America First, President Trump responded to Joe Biden's divisive comments by saying that Biden is simply trying to distract the country from his many failures. With Biden and his party's failures, Congressman, in Afghanistan, on the border, and the economy and the pandemic, is dividing the country on January 6th all these people have to run on?
Oh, they are left with January 6th as the last card in the deck. Democrats know they're not getting the Build Back Bankrupt plan thanks to Joe Manchin. They know that the infrastructure bill that they passed is not popular really with anyone. It's not helpful to any frontline Democrats. It's not helpful to Joe Biden. And so there's a certain Bush-Cheney 2004 energy to their strategy here. They don't have a popular bill or a legislative endeavor. And so they're instead just trying to say the other side is scary. You have to be worried about them. They might be terrorists and insurrectionists. And I think the American people are smart enough to see through that this is basically a presidency in decline, a man in decline. And if we want our country to not join Joe Biden in the state of decline that he is in, then we have to stand up and push back against these things. And it is troubling that most Republicans thought this was a day to call our fellow Americans terrorists or hide under their bed and just hope that the day would end. The reality is we have to make promises to our voters that if we take power, we will convert every committee in the Congress to an oversight committee so that we can show how these terrible things the Biden regime has done is connected to the pain of our people.
The Socialist Democrat Party is a sewer, and I don't want this country dragged into the sewer with them. I firmly believe that. Congressman Matt Gaetz, it's always a pleasure to visit with you, sir. Come back again.